It's been 17 days since I checked my hive splits for queen cells. So I'm going to get into the hives and see if I can find evidence of a laying queen. I usually try to do this at about 2 to 3 weeks. 3 weeks is usually a little better, but we've got some cool weather coming up and it's warm today. So I want to take advantage of this opportunity and see what I can find out in the hives. So let's get into it. So this first hive is the cosmic hive, and this is the hive that I split from 1 colony into 3. And when I did that split, I had moved the queen from the original location on this end over to the far end. But when I inspected for queen cells, I didn't find the queen or any evidence that she was there in that colony. So I added a frame from this colony that had a queen cell on it over in this colony. So it's possible all 3 of these have new queens. Starting with this end that's closest to the camera. This end was the original location of the colony before I did the split. So all the foragers naturally returned back to this location. So this has been fairly strong in terms of activity. This was a frame that just had a little bit of comb at the top. I had culled the rest of the comb and they've got that built out. They made fairly large cells, like drone-sized cells, but they are filling those up with nectar, except for one cell right there that has a larva in it, and another capped one right there. So pretty good signs right there that we have possibly a laying queen, although those are drone cells, and it's possible for a laying worker to lay drone eggs. This next frame is just super heavy. Probably full of nectar, and it is nectar and bee bread. We've got some drone cells at the bottom, got a queen cup at the bottom, and a queen cell that has been dismantled. That was probably one of the original queen cells, and I had marked that on April 2nd as having a queen cell. We've also got open queen cells on this other side. This cell is open on the end, so it may possibly be the one that a queen emerged from. Very often if a queen cell is opened up from the side, that is a queen that was killed by the first queen to emerge. Lots of nectar and bee bread in there. Lots of nice yellow and orange and reddish pollen in there. And some drone cells down at the bottom. I can smell that nectar in there. It smells wonderful. Next frame is a lot of empty cells in the middle. I'm going to try to get a better look at those and see if there's any eggs possibly in them. But there's lots of bee bread surrounding these. Bee bread all throughout there. We've got nectar. I am not seeing any eggs in any of those cells. They're just storing up resources there. I have not spotted a queen yet, but on this next frame we have capped brood. I'm going to look on this side of the frame that would have been towards the inside first. See if potentially our queen might have been there. Sometimes queens tend to run from the light. But we have some capped brood right there in the middle of that frame. And there's no way, I'll do the math, but I don't think there's any way we could have had capped brood left over from when that split was made. Got capped brood on this side, remnants of queen cells on there, and we've got some nectar stored up around there. And that capped brood, by the way, is worker brood, which a laying worker cannot lay worker brood. It requires a fertilized egg, and a regular worker bee would not be mated to lay that female egg. So I didn't see the queen, and this next frame doesn't have much to speak of on it. Little comb that they have built on there, so they're just working on that. I'm going to pull this frame once more, kind of work my way back through, see if I can see the queen on a second pass. I'm really not seeing larvae in there. So getting back through there, I didn't see any additional eggs or young brood, and I did not spot a queen. And that capped brood looks like pretty conclusive evidence that we had a queen, but that capped brood would have had to have been in there for a while, and I'm just not sure the queen would have been mated that early. So it's possible that capped brood is failed brood that the colony has not cleaned out yet. I'm uncertain about the status on this one. I'm going to come back. We're going to have some rain the next couple days and then some chilly weather after that, and then I'll come back and check on this hive again and once we get another warm day and see where things stand. If I need to, I'll add a frame of young brood to them and give them another chance at making a queen. I have called colonies queenless and then found out later that I was wrong. So we'll give them a little more time to prove out, and in the meantime we'll move on to the next hive. So this middle colony is the one that I was most concerned about. They didn't have the queen to start with, and they were moved away from where the foragers were. So they had the least advantage of any colony. And when I checked on them, they were also short on resources. And I will say I kind of waited to see how things would go and did not add any resources. They have actually been fairly busy. They've been bringing in some pollen. Not a ton of activity, but considering their state, I wouldn't have expected to see a lot. But we'll open this up and see what we can find. So there we got an empty frame, got a little bit of bee bread in it, but there's not really any nectar in there. We do have some nectar on this side and some more bee bread, so they're getting some resources built up. They do have an old queen cell on the face of this frame. I don't remember seeing that before, and I didn't mark this frame as having a queen cell, so I may have just missed that before. This next frame I did mark as having had a queen cell. It's got one queen cell that was opened up from the end, and then this one was opened up from the side. Another queen cell over here that's opened up, and one up here that's been chewed up. Not a lot of population here. They do have bee bread and nectar. I'm not seeing any brood in here yet. They do have kind of a constant hum here, which sometimes a queenless hive is louder, so it's possible they did not successfully requeen. And this next frame is just basically an empty frame with a little strip of starter, so I'm not even going to pull that one out. So again, not seeing much encouraging there. They do have some resources to carry them for a little bit, so we'll get through the rain and cold of the next few days and then come back and see if there's anything that I missed. With that low population, I think it would have been hard to miss the queen if she was in there, so I'm afraid they have failed to requeen. But let's see what the other colony's done. Now, this frame has cap brood and larvae down to tiny larvae, and I see eggs in there. Conclusively, we have a queen in here. The question is it a new queen or our existing or original queen? And that I just don't know. But the point is that we have a laying queen here. I'm guessing, based on this next frame, that we might never have lost. This is a frame that I moved over here on the 3rd, which was 16 days ago. And that frame is just full of capped brood. We've got bee bread, nectar. This is what I'm wanting to see on a frame. Let me pull that frame once more and see if I can find where the queen cell was. Right down here at the bottom. And it looks like it's just kind of been torn apart, so it's possible that they did not even let that queen emerge. Here we've got lots of brood and larvae. Next frame's a little lighter. We got comb built out, but not much to it. And the last frame is kind of the same story. So they haven't really done much with those two, but these first 3 frames look really good. Now we're on to the under the sea hive, in which I did a 1 colony to 2 split, which is safer than the 1 to 3 split that I did in the cosmic hive. Let's get into it and see how they're doing. This first colony I'm looking at is the colony that was queenless, but it's on the end of the hive where the colony started, so they would have retained the forager bees. The queen was put on the other end, and we'll double check to make sure that everything's okay there, but I don't have a whole lot of doubts about them. So this first frame, they're just kind of building out a little bit of comb on what was just some starter comb at the top. This next frame is almost completely built out, and it's fairly heavy. They've got almost completely full of nectar down through there and starting to cap some of the honey at the top. Next frame, I can see they even have more honey capped at the top. Nice heavy frame. Now we've got some empty comb on this side. I'm looking to see if there's any brood or eggs down in there. Got a lot of nectar at the top. More nectar at the top on this side. More drones bumbling around. Got some bee bread stored up down through there. Not seeing the queen yet. Not seeing eggs in those cells. This is one of my frames that had the queen cells on it. I'm seeing a lot of bee bread in there. You can see it up towards about the top third of the frame. A lot of bee bread right up here. And a lot of honey at the top. I should say a pretty good band of honey at least. I'm seeing a couple drone cells on here, but I'm not seeing any eggs down in those cells. And there is my queen. We got her right there. And she is surprisingly fat for a brand new queen. Let's see if I can mark her. Hey, don't clean her off yet, let it dry. Okay. She fainted on me here, but she's okay. Let the bees kind of revive her. So I don't know what's happening with this queen. The technique I used to mark her is one that I saw, I believe it was Black Mountain Honey demonstrate, which is where you just gently hold the queen against the comb, you know, just kind of hold her by her abdomen very gently, and then you can mark her without having to pick her up and handle her, and there's less risk of causing damage to the queen. So I did that, marked her. I've done a couple other queens that way and no problem, and I've seen queens faint before, and that's what I'm hoping happened here, but she hasn't been moving for a while, so I'm combing over in my mind what I could have done. I wasn't putting that much pressure on her. She just stopped moving. I would kind of hate to think that here this colony just made themselves a new queen, great looking queen, and then I kill her. I'll keep watching a little bit. Hopefully they'll be able to revive her and everything will be okay. But up until this point, it's been interesting checking these hives. This hive was great news. They had a queen. and then I came along. The first 2 colonies we checked, we didn't see any evidence of queens in there that was conclusive, but I'll check back on those and see what I can find. Then the 3rd hive looked good. They'd had a queen. We may need to use resources from that hive, use brood from that hive to help the others to try again to make queens. We've got a couple other hives to check, but I'll probably have to wait until after the weekend to get to those. Thanks for coming along. I hope you'll come along as we check those other hives. In the meantime, check out this video that Google thinks you'll really like. I'll see you next time. You big faker.